good afternoon, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Sharon Wood from cohort of CCC4. I'm very happy to be here today. As you can see, I'm Chinese. I look Chinese, but I think aside from there, there's really very little about me that's Chinese. The reason I have to explain to you about this is because my story hinges on this. My parents left China during the revolution in the late 40s. So I was brought up in Hong Kong in a very, very Western environment. And my memories of China back then has always been very dark and very negative. I never believed that China could change. I always believed that China would never, ever be what it says. And yet I have reason now to think that things are different, which is why my story today is that change happens and that China is reinventing itself. So I'm going to tell you about one man's dream. I'm sure you've all heard of the new president of China, Mr. Xi Jinping. He's a very normal man, like one of us. But what he has done is he has had the guts to promise his people a new life that's going to be fair, that's going to be free of corruption, and that will be very transparent. So that is not easy, because China is a country that is really rooted in collective and inherited mindsets and tradition. It's not a country that people would imagine would listen to others. It's very, very immersed in itself. So does China know that it's got all these problems, all these social ills? China knows it very well. They are very, very aware of their shortcomings, but they're constantly living in denial. So, since she came into office only a few months ago, he has started to clean house. He has started house cleaning behind closed doors, which is why people like us in this room will not have noticed real changes coming about. But for those of us who live day to day in China, we feel what is going on, and we can see that there are really tangible changes. Mr. Xi has promised that he will be killing tigers. By tigers, he meant all those in power. But he would also be swatting flies. Normal people who would be committing crimes. He's not going to let anything get past the rule of law. He is going to do away with corruption. He's going to see that fairness reigns and that those who do wrong will be brought to justice. But is this even imaginable? Until last year, if you had said this to any Chinese, he would have laughed his head off. He would say, "What? Erase corruption? Do you know what this means? Corruption is a way of life in China. You can't do anything, can't get anywhere without corruption. You want to get somewhere? You want to do something? Cross my palms with silver. Transparency? Kidding. Not even sure if that word exists in the language. And yet, today, we have proof that this man is making a change. He's rewriting history his way. And I'm living it every day, which is why I'm coming here to tell you this story. It's a pure story. There's nothing academic about it. I just wanted to explain to you what we are going through and what he's proving to be. It's not easy. So, 2013 is a year of firsts in China. And they're very important firsts. A new two-child policy has been implemented. In 1983, the family planning policy of China saw the country imposing a one-child law. Nobody was allowed to have more than one child. A lot of those who could afford it went for one more child. But to do that, they had to pay a penalty. The penalty was not enormous. It was like 12,000 RMB, which is the equivalent of about 2,000 US dollars. But for the people who make an average of 3,000 RMB, that's 4 months' salary. and not everybody could afford it. But what has happened is that this one-child policy has actually backfired. It was created in 1983, which is 3 decades ago. And what it has brought about is a lack of young people to take care of the elderly today. The government has done what it could in creating a lot of homes of the aged, nursing homes to take care of the old people. But this has not been working very well. China has grown very, very quickly, and a lot of people have migrated from their hometowns to more coastal cities in order to make a better living, to make more money, to be able to support their families. And this has left a lot of old people on their own. More than 18 million Chinese over the age of 65 are living on their own. And recently, especially this year, the government has found that a lot of them have been dying on their own without people even knowing about it. So what she has done in this sense is to enact a law making care of the elderly mandatory for everybody. This is one of the things that has been badly viewed by the international community because they didn't think that this should be a case of making a law. But for the local people, it has been very welcome, actually. To give you an explanation of why this is so, Mr. Wu Tianwan of China says, "I don't think it is proper to make a legal duty for people to visit their aged parents, but we have no choice. I have seen examples of old people dying unnoticed in their apartments. It is serious in my country, and we need to take measures now. To strengthen moral education is good, but it will take a long time. And the best immediate choice is to make it legally bound. At least if I need to care for a sick parent, my employers are now obliged to let me go." You have to understand that in China, vacation per annum is only 7 days. It is very difficult to take time off. They are not supported by Social Security or medical care the way the international community is, the way the people in Europe or in the US are. So they really have to work hard. If they stop working, they stop eating. And families rely on family to get through the day. So very difficult to take holidays. It's not well viewed. And with only 7 days, there's not much you can do. And if you need to take irregular holidays to take care of your parents, that is absolutely no, because work always comes first. It's sad to say. So, in a way, Mr. Xi is making a difference. He wants more young people to take care of the aged. But at the same time, he also realizes that China is growing too quickly. China needs to anchor its roots. China needs to focus on what is most important for the sustainability of the country in the future. And what could be more important than its youth? Mr. Xi is a very, very strong supporter of education. He believes that education should start at home. That doesn't mean homeschooling. It means that education should start at home. Education should not just be academic. Because of the 1983 one-child policy, the generation today are considered the second generation, the rich, spoiled brats, for whom the biggest concern is I, me, and myself. They are selfish, they are very short-sighted, and they are too materialistic. And what he thinks is that academic achievements is not all. There needs to be a moral education as well for the children if China is to become a valid leader in the future on the international scene. So he has also changed the way of education. In China, we call it the green education. This has nothing to do with the environment. It has everything to do with society. We call it the green education in China because Mr. Xi says, your children and society depend on each other, depend on education starting at home. And green education means lateral education, not academic. It means that they have to be moral, psychological, cultural, and environmental. That they must not just think about making money, about where they're going, but they have to see the whole picture. Schools are also being evaluated based on how much academic stress they are putting on children, compared to the green education, which is the goal of the country today. So as you can see, leadership does bring about changes. It would really be too naive to think that he can make everything right, that he can right all the existing wrongs, and that the social ills which he's now trying to root out little by little will not return. But it is also encouraging to know that the real measures that is being taken to motivate people to follow and participate in making their country a better place to live in is giving a lot of hope and confidence to people. China is a one-party, top-down government. Whatever the government does, people follow suit. So if the government decides to focus on education as the root of sustainability for the country, people will follow. De facto changes today are taking place, and there is actual need for help with improvement in a multitude of areas. What has changed is that China is starting to open itself to consultancy and help from outside. The government itself, for instance, has resorted to engaging consultants to help with problems. They have engaged Danish experts to help combat tainted milk problems. They have brought in Swiss and German consultants to help Chinese industries make the most of energy. And this has set the pace for the ordinary people. So what message does this carry across for us as change leaders? When I came to CCC 4 in 2006, consultation was not well perceived in China. But I think that today, the country is ready for it. And there is a future for people like us to make a change in the country's landscape. Thank you.